What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
All right, so sorry for the interruption here. Like I said, we're still getting the kinks out of the portable setup, and I'm going to be adding a second laptop to it so I can do the talking points better than I'm able to do them now on this Windows 10 machine here. So we're going to be live for the first hour just so I can say I did the show. And obviously feel free to call on in. Yesterday, of course, was a bit of a flustercluck. The movers arrived way earlier than we were told they were going to show up. Two very burly gentlemen who their English wasn't even their second language. It was like their fourth. And so as a result, stuff we did not intend to take to Indiana is now on the truck/boat heading for Indiana. Stuff that we wanted loaded is still here. We're going to have to ship it ourselves at hideous expense. And all in all, it was a very, very unpleasant experience. And so Claire and I are just going to kind of collapse for the weekend. Next week, of course, we have to finish getting the rest of this stuff sorted out, paperwork sorted out. Got to get documents down to the car shipping company. All in all, moving is a very unpleasant experience for somebody, well, for people of our age. And Claire has promised me this will be the last time we move, which is kind of funny because I thought when we moved here was going to be the last time we were going to move. But anyway, there we are. So what's going on in the world? Well, obviously, a lot of people still talking about the revelation that Jeff Epstein may have been murdered rather than commit suicide. First of all, the manner in which they claimed he committed suicide really never made any sense, where he tied the sheet tied around his neck, then around the bed, and then kneeled on his knees, leaned forward to strangle himself. And the reason that doesn't make sense is because as soon as he lost consciousness, he'd flop over on his side and the tension would be released. So, but they found broken bones in the neck of the body, including the hyoid, and a lot of pathologists are coming out and saying it is very, very rare, extremely rare, for the hyoid bone to break during hanging or self-strangulation. And so the speculation now is that, yes, in point of fact, Jeffrey Epstein, or whoever it is we're being told is Jeffrey Epstein, was in fact murdered in that cell. And the body's already been claimed by an unknown associate. So it's a big mystery. It'll probably stay a mystery, and we'll probably figure out a lot of the pieces to it the way we did with Vince Foster. But it's definitely a mess. Okay, so now then, getting on into some talking points here. Let's see. By the way, do call and join us on the air here. All righty. Over at YouTube, moderators are now saying that the biggest stars, if you will, the high-profile creatives, are let off the hook when they break the rules. It's only the little people, when they break the rules, they can get banned and lose their channels here. Apparently, you know, Ghislaine Maxwell, if I were her, I'd be trying to stay out of the news. I'd be trying to stay, you know, kind of, if anything, hidden. But apparently, she went on out and did a book review called The Book of Honor, The Secret Lives and Deaths of CIA Operatives, and she did it for Amazon. And she was photographed reading the book at an In-N-Out Burger, which they have good burgers. But I'm wondering why she felt qualified to be reading that particular book. Okay, so let's see. The last time I checked the stock market, it was just slightly in the green. Oh, it's doing very well, as a matter of fact. And so anyway, let's see. Okay, no callers yet. I have to flip back and forth on this. Yeah, we're still working the kinks out on this system here. So anyway, top forensic pathologist, only 2% of hanging deaths resulted in a broken hyoid bone. So you definitely a weird message there. Okay, apparently UPS has been delivering cargo in self-driving trucks for months and nobody knew it. And do we have a caller on the line here? Yes, we do. Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael. Very good day to you. Yeah, Michael. I don't know if you saw the news. I'm sure you have. The Ninth Circuit Court on San Francisco actually ruled with Trump today on immigration. I don't know if you got a chance to see that.
No, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see. I think, and first of all of our TVs are gone, all of our radios are gone, and we're kind of a little cut off here right now, out here in the middle of the Pacific. And like I said, I'm trying to set up some alternative systems so we can, stay in touch and keep on doing the show. But it's turning out to be a little trickier than we thought.
Right. Well, they did rule with Trump today on immigration, which I think is a good thing. I can't believe the Ninth Circuit actually gave him a little bit of a victory. But getting back to Trump too, Michael, that was a great rally he held last night. He really was hitting home about the socialism and the socialist communist. He threw that word out, communist, which you never seen any other president actually do.
Yeah, not since Reagan.
Well, Reagan also, yes, you're correct. Another thing is that Trump said something very interesting, Michael, that has been on the news. I know you haven't had a chance, but he's talking about Greenland. That would be a great idea to purchase Greenland. I think it'd be a wonderful idea. I don't care if it costs $10 billion to get that landmass. I don't care if it is frozen, because they said if 1/10 of Iceland were to thaw out, it would be the size of Texas.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I heard about
Greenland.
It sounded almost like a joke, but you're absolutely right. Everybody's talking about water shortages, and Greenland, because its ice forms from snow, it's fresh water, and that would be a tremendous source for fresh.
Absolutely, Michael.
Yeah.
And the minerals. Can you imagine, Michael? I got to ask you one thing. Maybe you saw about a month ago that really blew me away, and I got to ask you this because I got to make sure I'm seeing what I saw on National Geographic. I saw where the Russians, Putin, literally blew up an atomic bomb underground, and when they were done with the explosion, the underground explosion, he had a circle in Russia. It was like the size of maybe 5 football fields, and in that circle, Michael, I don't know if you have a chance to see the National Geographic ever, but in that circle, there was gold and platinum stuck together. And
yes.
They show Putin holding a gold bar, and this guy's like saying he hit the mother lode of all mother lodes. And National Geographic's literally showing you this. And now the platinum is amazing that it would be mixed in with gold. If that's the case, how much money does Russia really have with gold and platinum?
Well, first of all,
don't forget diamonds.
My first question would be, are those metals radioactive from the atomic bomb? Because if they are, then their value is rather limited. But the fact of the matter is that these heavier metals, gold and platinum and so forth, the deeper you go, the more that you're going to find. The problem is the deeper you go, the more expensive it is. And you come up against what's called the unit cost of extraction, which means if it costs you an ounce of gold's worth to dig out an ounce of gold, the operation's over. It doesn't pencil out. There's no profit. And so, that's an issue. If you go down deep enough, you're going to find a lot of gold and silver. And, I'm anxious to see the spacecraft that's out there approaching an asteroid that they think is made mostly of gold. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Michael, one more thing I want to bring up. I told you yesterday about the majority. I look at Ignacio Cortez, and I was looking at her today on the news, Michael. She's very white-skinned to me. And she's always having this problem with white people. These Hispanics, what's wrong with these Hispanics, especially the ones that are like from Spain and all that? They're Europeans. They keep saying they're not white. They're not Latins. Let's get this straight. All these people are coming in and say they're Latin. There has nothing to do with Latin. The Latins are Romans. They need to tell the truth what they really are. They're Hispanic. But the ones that come out of Spain, Michael, are European. When you go to Spain, my friend just came back. He said half of northern Spain the northern part of Spain, most of the people are redheads or blonde.
Yep.
But
Well, look at the history of Europe. Everybody's invading everybody, and everybody's it. I mean, you want to talk about the original melting pot? Europe was that long before the United States.
That's correct. And Ignacio Cortez has got white skin. Let me tell you, I saw her today. I'm like, man, that lady, she looks like a ghost. She's so white.
Yes.
And then she keeps talking crap about white. And then you got these bumbling white people that are like Dennis and Pooper wanting to brown the country down so we can end up like they are. So we become a third world where everything's chaos in all those third world countries.
Well, we're close to that now.
Control themselves. Exactly. And I got to say this, Michael. Here's the last thought. I'm going to let you go. I know you got other callers you want to talk about or stuff. Here's the main thing that really is bugging me, Michael, more than anything I see. This is the only culture that's able to come to this country and keep their common language. The Germans weren't able to do it. The Polish weren't allowed to do it. The Swedes weren't allowed to do it. The Danes weren't allowed to do it. But these people come here to have more radio stations in the southeast of the United States than they do English. This has got to stop. Donald Trump's got to put his foot down on that. He's got to put his foot down on that, Michael. That's got to stop. Desist right now. Otherwise, we will become Bosnia and Herzegovina. Absolutely. No question about it. Thank you for taking my call, Michael.
All right, you got it here. We're going to switch over to Don in Iowa. Aloha, Don. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I think that, in my opinion, we still don't know if that corpse is really the corpse of Epstein.
Or just somebody who looked an awful lot like him.
Well, I mean, they could. This guy had almost an infinite amount of money and political connections, and he was a spy. I mean, and he had intelligence connections, and they know all kinds. Intelligence connections know all kinds of ways to fake everything. That's what they do. They fake stuff. I mean, and besides that, he had so much money, and he was in New York City there, and they could have got some corpse. I mean, we don't know if it looked exactly like him. His brother identified him as being him, but so what? His brother would be on his side if he was an escaped, Ken Lay type escape, and he's so. And who is this unidentified associate that picked up his corpse? What are they going to do with it?
It's unidentified. That's all they said. Unidentified associate.
Yeah, there's no press conference. There's no in 20, 30, 40 years ago, the New York Times would have called up and said, "Hey, we want some." They would have called up the president and said, "We want some answers on this." That's what they would have done. Now the mainstream media is just going along with They're totally part of the whole thing, and what the whole thing is. They figure that within a few days. Americans have a short attention span. That's what they're counting on, and nobody will care after a while. But I still think the guy's alive, and especially if he gets cremated, that's going to tell me that I think he's alive. I'll let you go, Mike. I hope you have a good trip back to Indiana, the Hoosier State, and you'll take your place with some of the other great intellectuals of Indiana, like Kurt Vonnegut Jr. I'll let you go, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. And, of course, one of the reasons to wonder if Epstein really is dead is because of the concept of a dead man switch. And I can't imagine a guy who lived by blackmail and had so many people who did hate him didn't have dead man switches set up. And the only way to get Epstein out of that prison without setting off the dead man switches is to make sure he's not really dead. All right, let's go back to the phones here to Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. I'm starting to get the feeling of like what it felt like to be a kulak. They were the people that they were demonized by the Russians, the Soviets, and then starved and put into concentration camps and work camps. I mean, I consider myself a white because I'm white and a nationalist because I'm a nationalist. But I can't read, Drudge Report or Breitbart or watch the news without some lefty threatening white people, threatening white nationalists, wanting to take a red flag laws against white nationalists. And I just got to say to all my fellow white nationalists out there, this fight that's coming, these people are after us. I mean, they make no bones about it. They're actually turning the heat up. They're trying, which is a good thing in my view, to put all Trump supporters in the white nationalist party, which is good because that adds to our ranks. But, there's no doubt in my mind we have to use jury nullification as white nationalists. We have to start preparing. These people are coming to take our guns, and then after they take our guns, they want to round us up. They say it. I mean, you have rock stars saying, boy, when we get back into power, you're sure going to pay. I mean, in politics, in the media, I've never seen such, vicious hatred. And it's all what does white nationalists even do there? They've invented this boogeyman,
yes.
just because they're so upset about the way the election went. I mean, I wish Trump was a white nationalist, but he isn't. He's a nationalist, but he's as far as being a white separatist, that's a joke. I mean, he's about almost as Jewish to me. But if they're going to do that and taint him up and demonize him and us, what are they going to do when they get back into power? I mean,
that's a good question. Anyway, Joe,
not making any bones about it. They're coming for us.
Joe, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials,
thanks,
and
Mike.
We will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to John in West Virginia. Aloha, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. This is a real interesting story. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but the teachers in West Virginia wondering where the money for all the Powerball proceeds go and why they're still having to buy their own supplies for school around here. And I think this might help figure out what is going on. This came out of the Oklahoma newspaper, August 26, 2008. There was a Powerball winner of $29 million.
Jeff Epstein.
It was Zorro Trust claimed claimed that, but it was actually the ticket was bought by a convenience store lady that worked there. So how Zorro Trust ended up claiming the ticket for $29 million is awfully funny. And there was also a glitch that same day that they couldn't show the drawing on TV. It was actually done after the fact, and then the numbers came out the next day, if that doesn't sound fishy enough.
That does sound very fishy. It sounds, and I know Jeff Epstein. Jeff Epstein also won a Powerball prize.
Well, Jeff Epstein is the owner of Zorro Trust.
Yeah, that's right. You are correct.
So probably goes with the Zorro Ranch name down there in New Mexico. But anyway, August 26, 2008, any listener can look that up and see there was a glitch that day in the Powerball drawing, and it was not televised. And then all of a sudden, Zorro Trust ends up with it. Gee, what a coincidence, Mike.
Definitely sounds like it was rigged, and it could have been some kind of a payoff.
And the other coincidence is Oklahoma only started the Powerball January of 2006, and as of this date, 2008, there had already been 3 full winners, 2 of which were claimed by trusts, of all things. The second trust winning was $105 million in August of 2006, so no one even knows who won that one. 2 of the 3 winnings in that short a time were both by trust, so I think Powerball is a pretty sketchy thing.
It does sound like it. I hadn't really paid that much attention to it other than to make jokes about it. I've been going around here, everybody's saying, when we get to Indiana, I'm going to buy a couple of Powerball tickets and get a bunch of cash and retire. But yeah, and it wouldn't be the first time that one of these lotteries was being rigged. I remember watching this video one time of a drawing that was live on TV. And when 2 of the balls came out, they called the numbers in reverse order. And that made it really obvious that something funny was going on.
Yeah, just like CNN knowing that Building 7 came down. Well, how do you know? Anyway, Mike, I'll let you go. Great show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Robert in London. Aloha, Robert. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, hi. This is Robert from London. Hi. I would like to speak primarily about the Great One.
Okay, we have got a really, really bad phone connection, and
Right. Okay, I'll leave it then. Yeah, is it back?
we can't understand you. I'm sorry. Could you try calling back in?
Okay. All right.
Okay, try calling back in. All right, we're going to go back here and do a little bit of news. Okay, let's see what's really interesting here. Speaking of Putin, and again, if they really did find a lot of gold and platinum underneath that nuclear weapon, if it is radioactive, and that's what neutron radiation does, is everything it intersects becomes radioactive itself. It kind of makes it something that maybe you could put it in ingots and store it in a lead-lined vault just so that you can say, we have the gold. But it's almost like the plot line out of Goldfinger. Set off a bomb in Fort Knox and make the gold unusable. But Putin, apparently, he is going ahead with developing all those wonder weapons that he talked about in last year's State of the Union speech. Apparently, they had a bad accident with the nuclear-powered cruise missile, and it's released some radiation. People had to take iodine on that one. Meanwhile, Putin's undetectable Hunter stealth drone is already undergoing test flights, and so they're moving right along here. Right now, everybody's looking at our economy, and great that they're having a Friday happy ending over at the stock market, but the reason for the big plunge earlier in the week, there are indicators signaling a coming recession. And you've got like Kramer's out there saying, oh, come on, media, stop hyping it. You're making people afraid. Tell everybody to calm down. The economy's fine. But you've got 9 major economies are in recession or on the verge of it. 18 economies now have 30-year yields inverted. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. Join us on the air. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. The economy hasn't been well in the United States and most of the Western world since the gold standard was ended.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Yes.
Nixon, once again, we're talking about Nixon here.
Well, it's not like Nixon just got up one day and said, I'm going to end the gold standard and mess up the economy. His hand was forced, and it was forced by the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve, in violation of the Bretton Woods Agreement, was simply printing up Federal Reserve notes willy-nilly until finally the Bank of France just had vaults full of the paper and said, we want to redeem them. Under the Bretton Woods Agreement at $32 an ounce. And Nixon looked in Fort Knox and realized they didn't have anywhere near enough gold to redeem all of that bogus paper. And that's why his hand was forced on that.
Yep. That was, wasn't that Chirac in France, I think, right?
Yeah, and of course it didn't help that a few years before that there'd been an attempted regime change by the United States in France.
Yeah, that came back to bite them in the butt.
Yep.
But before, let's say around 73, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers here, and they don't look too bad. Obviously, the 70s was brutal because lead up to this recession, and then all of a sudden Volcker, raises interest rates to 20%. Reagan comes in, cuts taxes again in 86. I mean, it's just bad, and wow, things got really ugly. Obviously, in 2009, we were running a 10% budget deficit, and then it came down to around 2.4 in 2015, and then boom, Trump gets in and he cuts corporate taxes, which is not a bad idea, but still you have to pay for it. I think the real problem, maybe, Mike, is obviously, the jobs have been offshored and all that, and you don't really have we don't have an honest money supply or money system. But the United States, I mean, maybe these guys just aren't paying enough taxes, and all of the wars.
Well, I was going to say the other problem is the government simply spends too much money, and it's spent foolishly and wastefully. There's a huge amount of pork barrel going on, and basically Congress will use the public treasury to literally buy their way into the hearts of the voters by giving away free stuff. And we're seeing the Democrats literally campaigning on that issue for 2020. Vote for us. We'll give you free stuff. We'll take the money away from the white people and we'll give it to the non-white people. And they're talking reparations and all the rest of it. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a prime example of this kind of thinking, where she came on in, she's talking about her Green New Deal, and everybody's saying, how are you going to pay for it? And she says, well, we'll just pay for it. Okay, how? We'll just pay for it. Yeah. No clue, no idea.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the Federal Reserve and, the people behind the Federal Reserve would love that. They love that idea because now they have absolute control of the United States, lock, stock, and barrel. So
I think the bankers have had control of the United States for decades. In fact, for a century, ever since the creation of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah. Well, your country's not alone in this, the central bank thing. And the IMF recently called for steep negative interest rates.
Yes.
So their idea is to, if you have cash sitting in the bank, they're going to start clawing away at it. People are just going to withdraw it. And then you know what they're going to do. They're going to ban cash.
Yep.
Right?
Definitely.
And you can actually see, it's like hopscotch. You know exactly where this is going to end.
Yes.
So, yeah. People need to wake up, a lot quicker than what's happening now. I mean, Sweden, was it Sweden, Mike, that just did the cashless thing?
I think Sweden is one of the places where they're trying to do cashless society. There have been a couple of countries that have tried it. I understand in at least one of them, it really didn't work out all that well.
Yeah, I think Sweden, people are actually getting chipped. They're putting chips in their hands. I mean, how could that go wrong?
Well, I don't know. Some migrant chop off the hand, go to the ATM machine.
You know what, Mike? I never even thought of that one. That's wow. Yeah. Okay, you have a good one, Mike. Your system here is not looking too bad. No?
Well, I've got a hard line, a hard Ethernet line into it this time. When we were out on Kauai, we had to be on Wi-Fi. While we're in the house, obviously it's going to be like this. When we get to the hotel, we're going to be staying at a hotel for a few days during the final clean out and turn over the keys. That's probably going to be on Wi-Fi, and I don't know what that connection is going to be like. I'm going to try and be on the air as much as I can between now and when we settle into Santa Claus. But at this point, things have just descended into complete and utter chaos.
Do you know what the internet connection is like out there, or in Indiana where you're going?
Well, obviously, that's going to be a major factor in selecting where we're finally going to be living. I mean, when we first get there, we're going to be staying with family who've got this lovely place in Santa Claus, and they've got a hard Ethernet line. They've got good internet. We've stayed with them before.
Good. That's really good. All right, Mike, you have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over and try Robert in London again. Robert, aloha. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hi. Hi, Michael. Sorry I couldn't get a hold of you earlier. Listen, I'd like to talk about the Grace 1, which is the Iranian supertanker that was held up in Gibraltar.
Yes,
and today,
they've released it now.
They released it, yes. But we don't know where it's going. All we know is going to go to Mediterranean somewhere, and the Iranians have promised that it's not going to go to Syria, and but we don't know where it's going to go to. So I immediately speculate. I'm putting my 10 cents bet on, could it go to Lebanon, to Beirut? And the answer is, it might do, but I think security would be pretty difficult. But I am putting my bet on that it's going to go to the Russian, in Syria, you've got the Russian airdromes, where they do the bombing from. And everybody, I'm sure everybody in Syria needs petrol, gasoline, and that the Russians, I put on, my bet is that it's going to go to the Russian military airport.
Yes.
And so therefore, if you say it can't go to Syria, Russians will say, well, actually, it's going to us, so it's our petrol.
Yeah.
And we give it to who we want. And so it's going to fill up our storage areas in the Jaime, where the name of the airdrome where all their planes are.
Yes.
And then obviously we're going to also transport it to our other military locations around the country. And obviously, whilst on the way, we could also give it to a few friends and a few poor people who need it. And if you complain, well, actually, it's the Russian. It's not Syrian petrol. It's Russian petrol, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So that's my bet. So that's
Sounds
my 10 cents worth of thinking, yeah?
Yeah,
so that's what I'm just saying. Yeah, that's my conclusion.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I think you may well be right on that.
So we'll have a good show.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Rick in South Carolina. Aloha, Rick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Michael. Firstly, I just wanted to say that's a really good site you got, whatreallyhappened.com. I don't know how many people know about that, but it's got a lot of very good information there. And so I've heard a lot about you moving, and I was never sure where to, but it sounds like you're moving to Idaho, right?
Indiana.
Hawaii.
Indiana.
Oh, Indiana. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I really like your show. I really just started listening to it. I'm a new listener, a first time caller. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about trade, because a lot of people misunderstand trade. And it's not like I'm a really big Trump fan. In fact, I really not. I really only was just thankful that we got him instead of Hillary. But anyway, so with trade, Trump is not pro-tariff at all. He's always said to the Canadians, to anybody he's dealing with, he said, drop all your tariffs and we won't have any either. We'll have total free trade. So
yes.
He's only using trade. So anytime that you talk about tariffs, you got to think in the short term. And in the short term, there's a bit of pain and there's a price to be paid. But while they're having a one-way street, they send their cars to us, no tariffs. And we send our cars to them, they're marking them up 100%. Well, that's totally unfair. So what Trump is trying to do is level the playing field, and they don't want to play ball because they've been on the Kool-Aid too long, and they're addicted to it. So he's not trying to impose tariffs just for the sake of it. He only does it as a deterrent for them having tariffs until we get a fair playing field. But Larry Kudlow is his senior financial advisor, and he's totally against tariffs. If you've heard of Larry Kudlow before, I mean, he's never been for tariffs.
Yeah. But here's the point.
Larry Kudlow,
Trump can say he was against tariffs, and Kudlow can say they're against tariffs, but we've got the tariffs anyway. And so at this point, okay. I really don't care what they're saying. What I want to hear about, what are they actually doing? And what they're actually doing is they're doing sanctions and tariffs all over the place, and it is causing a lot of harm to the U.S. economy at a time when it lacks resiliency. The state of the,
I don't know if you're not.
hang on.
If you understand, okay.
Rick,
go ahead.
hang on.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I understand that you're rah-rah for the tariffs and everything, but when this whole idea of a trade war with China came along, I said, we're, as a country, not positioned to take advantage of the tariffs because we don't have an active manufacturing base ready to go right now. And everybody's saying, oh, well, they'll start investing in factories and building factories. It takes a long time to build a factory. And it takes a long time to catch up to the degree of manufacturing that China has already established here. And so the tariffs, from where I'm sitting, they're not really working. They're not leveling the playing field. They're not helping the U.S. worker. And again, as a nation, we're not able to take advantage of the situation. So it's just penalizing the American people who have to pick up the cost of those tariffed goods.
Well, there's always there is a price to pay, which
yes.
Trump admits, that he said that, in the short term, we're going to have to pay a bit of a price. He said, but so far, the statistics have shown is that the Chinese have been absorbing the price, and they've been subsidizing their companies. So basically, Americans haven't been paying. That's a fact so far. Okay. So, and then the other thing you got to look at, say, over the long term, say 10 or 20 years, we want to make a major shift. And in the short term, say in 2 or 3 or 5 years, we bear a little bit of hardship. But in the long term, we gain long-term jobs. That's a really good thing. And for instance, Apple is a good example. Apple refuses to build in America. Well, guess what? They're going to start building in America because they're sitting on $350 billion in cash, and they don't want to manufacture in America. You watch. They will start manufacturing in America because of the tariff. So, and by the way, it is making jobs. And by the way, our exports is only 13%. So we are actually helping ourselves by doing this because we've got very little to lose and we have a lot to gain. And really, this started back in the basically at the end of the Reagan era and the Bush and Clintons, where they started shifting and handing to China all our technology. And that's why China went from number 30 as a trading partner to the United States to where they were number 1. Well, guess what? In the last few months, they're now number 3. Now they're behind Mexico and they're behind Canada. And I hope they go back to number 30 because I think China is a really disgusting New World Order country. And, and by the way, I'm totally with you on sanctions. I don't like the way Trump is sanctioning Russia. I don't like the way he's doing it with Venezuela. He should be helping the Venezuelan people. He shouldn't be, just because we disagree with their policies and we don't like that they're communist in their thinking, doesn't mean we should sanction them. I think that's totally wrong. So I'm with you.
Well, on that. the reason Trump is sanctioning Venezuela is to try and force Maduro to leave so that a U.S. friendly leader can take over.
Right, but but why should we do that? Why should we force? Well, that's really manipulation. We should encourage people to change. We should encourage people to change, but not force them to. If they want to be a communist, socialist country, let them. But we would encourage them with carrots. Say dangle carrots and say, hey, look, we'll give you this benefit and this benefit. If you move away into a more free market. But we shouldn't be trying to get rid of Maduro. So what? If the people want, the guy that Mike Pence put in charge there, they said that he's the new prime minister. He's not. 70% of the people didn't even know the guy until Mike Pence made him the prime minister. That's the empire building, that state building. America. That's not American.
No.
And that's
unfortunately, sadly, it is. Sadly, it is. It's just that up until recently, most American citizens didn't realize it was going on. They thought they were seeing real grassroots organic revolutions in these countries, and they weren't. These things were being fomented. I mean, China right now thinks the United States is behind the Hong Kong riots. Anyway, Rick, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercial. Back with my last live segment of this program after these few words. Welcome back to our show. Let's go back to the phones to Mike in Brazil. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Yeah, I was reading some commentaries on YouTube about there's a channel called Valley Ridge or Valor Ridge or something like that, and the guy started enumerating all the amendments of the Constitution that the government is violating, and he went to the 2nd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 14th that they infringe on our liberties, right?
Right.
For some reason, people forget about the 9th Amendment, which states clearly that the enumeration of certain rights should not be construed to disparage others retained by the people.
Yes.
Now, among those rights retained by the people is the right to keep and bear arms, and that's reinforcing the 2nd Amendment. And for some reason, people just don't even mention the 9th Amendment or the 10th Amendment for that matter, because most of the gun laws are the decisions are taken at state level, most of them. And of course, you have the federal laws, but you also have the state, the state laws and local ordinances and all that. And a lot of people just completely forget about the 9th Amendment. All the rights which are retained by the people, but they're not specifically enumerated in the Bill of Rights. And another thing I was going to say, the Supreme Court, okay, they do not have the power to interpret the Constitution or the rights contained therein, okay?
No,
but
they don't.
The Supreme Court. What? I'm sorry.
I said, no, they don't. They simply grab that authority. But if you go back to Marbury versus Madison, you'll understand that it's up to we, the people, to decide what those amendments and those rights mean.
That's right. It's up for the people's interpretation, not for the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court is a political body, basically, okay? So,
yes.
The fact that the Supreme Court ventures in territories which are forbidden for them to venture into tells me that we basically live in a dictatorship, because the Supreme Court has no business deciding what infringe means. Okay? I mean, we'll look at Roe versus Wade. Today, abortion is legal. Tomorrow, it's not legal. Okay, it depends. It's like the weather; it keeps changing all the time. So I have a real big problem with this. The Supreme Court of the United States has no power to interpret the Constitution or any rights contained therein. Okay. So
yes.
Another thing is, I heard Donald Trump today. I think it was a few days ago. He had a rally in Pennsylvania, and he kept talking about interest rates. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be better if we wouldn't have any interest rates, if the government would issue its own currency free of charge? Wouldn't that be better?
Well, that's how this country started, and it worked wonderfully. And
the guy kept talking. The guy kept talking about interest rates, that they go up, they go down. And I was thinking, this guy's a moron. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. We're not supposed to have any interest rates.
Okay, well, Mike,
yes.
There's interest on bank loans, but it shouldn't be interest on the currency as a whole. Anyway, Mike, thank you for the phone call. I'm going to be taking off right now. The rest of the show will be a replay followed by John Stadmiller, and hopefully we're going to have all of the kinks worked out on this system. And we'll do a full show on Monday with talking points and everything properly. But right now, I'm going to collapse. So have a good weekend, and aloha, America.